Hello, 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 hello. Welcome to the Deep Free Podcast. I am your host, right? It's been a minute. Been a minute? It's been a minute.
In a
The one,
minute.
the only, the brown one, Sam and himself, with, of course, the only other person that lives in Colorado, right next door to me. Can't disclose our location. KOB, what is good, my guy?
It's good to be back here with the true OG.
Mm-hmm.
Just us two. It's a rare occurrence. So
Yeah, it's a rare occurrence, but it's like it reminds me of like CJ and Dame. It's a rare occurrence for them to be very successful in the playoffs. But hey, we're change of fates with us. We're different here. Clearly, I am Dame. You are CJ. You compliment me. While I shoot half court shots and I make my ridiculous takes.
that's
But
okay. I'm the one actually doing the work then. So okay.
okay, yeah, okay. We'll see past this first round. Anyways, let's talk about some real news. I know last week probably talked about Danny Ainge stepping down because he was a pussy. Um, and Brad Stevens, who was equally a pussy, he was like, I don't want to coach anymore. So I'm gonna step up, take VP of operations, GM, shit like that. I think we briefly talked about it with Celtics hype wagon. I don't know if he's a true fan. I mean, like I know he jumped on the bandwagon. He said 2008, which is when they won the title. So I mean, it's a whole different team at this point. But your thoughts as the polar opposite with the Lakers? Good move, bad move? Is this even a move? Like, what are we doing here?
I think at the end of the day, they needed to change, like shift gears with Ainge. Ainge was not working. His strategy worked back in the day, like 10 years ago. Great, awesome. He was great at what he did. Now in current basketball, it never worked. They always felt like they were making mistakes. So I think getting rid of him is a plus, but putting Brad Stevens in his place, I think is a big question mark. It could pay off. Absolutely could pay off, but high risk, high reward, I guess. I don't know. I think that's an iffy choice. I would have gone with someone who they know would be good after Danny Ainge if I were them, but
Hey, you said high risk, high reward, but what would be the reward in this case? What do you think is the big picture plan for the Celtics? Like, what can they do as the reward?
so I think the big thing is you get Brad Stevens at a young age who can learn really quickly and who might take a little bit to get on his feet in this position. But if he does, and if he really like accepts that that's the role he wants to play for that organization, he's going to be there for 20 years easily. I think he if everything works out. I mean, but again, that's a big hit. Um, but he obviously loves Boston. He likes that organization, or he wouldn't stay with them still. So I think he's in a good spot, and he can do a lot from this too. So I think it's a good move for him. Is it a good move for the Celtics? We'll see.
Speaking of really good moves, there might be some fallout with Kemba Walker. I think that he felt really bad when the Celtics tried to trade him during the right before trade deadline. Don't blame him. I mean, it reminds me of DeMar DeRozan, but honestly, it reminds me of Isaiah Thomas, where it's like another broken dude. In this case, who's got a bag. In your eyes, where can Kemba Walker even go with that kind of contract? I mean, he's got like over 100 million left on contract, so.
Yeah, I don't know that anyone is gonna want him. I think it's if anyone is, it's gonna be like a kind of like desperation pick, like the Bulls picking up Vucevic, like paying him loads of money, even though he really bringing them from like bottom tier to top tier? No, he's bringing them from like C tier to B minus tier. So I think Kemba's going to be in kind of a similar situation. Maybe go to somewhere like the Pelicans if they got the money for it, something like that. Someone who has not made the playoffs, who's in that kind of lottery spot that are just, they want someone to lead them. They need someone to lead them, and they're going to overpay for someone like Kemba, unfortunately. Uh, or he's going to stay with Celtics, and the Celtics are going to be out of a bunch of money still.
Yeah, I mean, they still have that whatever left in that trade exception that they had by the trade deadline when they made the trades early on with Gordon Hayward. So it'll be interesting to see what pans out there. I think we could both agree that Jason Tatum's the only safe person here in terms of who will be a Celtic guaranteed next season in terms of for the future. Don't get me wrong. I think we all like Jaylen Brown. I just think that we can just sell him so high. And I think with the injury, I hope it doesn't bring him down, but I think it's going to bring his value down quite a bit. And I think there's teams that's going to bite, for someone that's like 22 years old and still balling out like this. I mean, like someone's going to bite on that.
Yeah.
And with Brad Stevens moving up, there's a head coaching vacancy. Who do you think is going to be the best fit for the Celtics team?
I kind of, I'm not sure. I kind of almost, oh, first of all, got to get this off my chest. Jason Kidd should not be a head coach anywhere. Get out of here. Get out of here, Dame, being like, I want Jason Kidd. Get out of here. Trash. Maybe assistant. Great. Sure. Cool. Get out of here. You know, I'd be interested to see if or where Kenny Atkinson goes for a full-time position. I think the Celtics kind of could be a good fit for him. I don't know if that would work out, but I think that would be that could be a good solution to a lot of their issues.
That's a really interesting pick. I didn't even consider that. Bonus points. Do you know where Kenny Atkinson is an assistant coach for? He's a second in line.
Clippers, I think.
Okay, you are officially number 2 of the podcast now. I mean, you were already officially number 2 before, but I'm just now self-deeming you on the physical podcast because I'm always number 1. Never forget that, everyone. Know your place. Okay, I'm just kidding. But yeah, no, I mean, Kenny Atkinson, I think we all, I mean, I talk too much about Kenny Atkinson, I'm almost a fanboy at this point. Yet we saw that, Kevin, per tradition, you know how it is.
What are you talking about?
But with Kenny Atkinson, coaching the Nets prior to the superstar build up there, was able to rebuild that whole organization, with all the young bloods. And I think you're right. I think with just how young the Celtics team is, I think that actually might be a good fit. I think he's, he may not be the guy that you want to go maybe long term, just because he's so good at just building youth. He may not be the guy to get them to the next step, because it almost feels like the Boston Celtics are taking a step back, right? They're going to the conference finals back to back to back to back. This time they fell out in the first round. Clearly something's not working. But like you said, I think maybe either someone young to help, groom the young guys into being a more formidable team, at least like a 6th seed, 7th or 5th seed, overall, or maybe a Mike D'Antoni. I don't know if they're able to poach him from the Nets or if he's even interested in that kind of position, but just that kind of veteran experience. At the end of the day, in this league now, defense is overrated, and it's all about who can score 140 points at the end of the night. So we'll see how that goes. But going along with the whole coaching situation, Terry Stotts, our boy, I don't know if he's our boy, but Terry Stotts out of Portland. I'm not sure how long I think he's been over 8 years there. And in the last 5 years, 4 first-round exits, which is frustrating. I mean, it's a tough conference. I mean, you're matched up against like the really good teams, especially when you're on the lower end of the spectrum for the most part. There were some rumblings from Damian Lillard on Instagram or Twitter or whatever it was, quoting Nipsey Hussle, say, how long should I stay dedicated? How long till opportunity meets preparation? What vibes did you get from this when it came to Damian Lillard?
I think he's in that mindset that a lot of people think he should have been in for a while. I think he's in that mindset of like, okay, I've given my life to this team, this organization for so long, and I've gotten nothing out of it. You get a paycheck, you get a fat paycheck, obviously, but like you don't get that glory that LeBron has, that AD has, that so many of these big stars have. And I feel like Dame he's sick of being on that secondary list of like good players but not great players. Like I think he's looking at that chip on his shoulder more and more and more, and I think he's gonna either he's going to force change in this organization or he's going to leave. Uh, I think along the Nipsey Hussle line, like I think if you're not getting what you want in your situation, you have to be the one to change something. Like you can't just sit there and uh, hope that something changes for you. You got to be the one to go out there and do something about it.
Oh, relax, okay, man, relax, okay. You. Let's just jump to it right now, okay. Let's jump into this. You mentioned LeBron James and Anthony Davis, who are coincidentally on the same team. Are you hinting at Damian Lillard becoming a Laker next season?
I know that's a rumor, but I don't think it would happen at all. But I would be so hype if it did. I would be so hype because I mean, like we said, like I think last episode, LeBron's not 5 years ago LeBron. He's not Miami Heat LeBron. So if he can be uh, a leader role for both Dame and AD on the same team,
Ooh.
I mean that's something to rival Nets with their KD, Harden, and Kyrie. So I don't know.
That's okay. Okay. Now, obviously, the Trailblazers, you want to try to keep Dame. What do you think will be the biggest piece? I know there was a rumor that Dame did want Jason Kidd. We know we both dislike Jason Kidd. And I think Jason Kidd even dipped out of that conversation just because it came out very soon, like after Terry Stotts firing and stuff like that. So if you're the Trailblazers, is it a coach thing? Is it get more, weapons for Damian Lillard? Like, what are we doing here?
I think I think there's a difference between what they need and what they'll do. I think they'll do just about anything to please Dame at the moment. I think they know that Dame is their franchise. Dame and CJ are their franchise. They're like Nurkic is good, but he's not a face of that organization. A lot of the players on that team are good, but they're not a face. Dame and CJ are, so they got to do whatever they can to keep them. And I think that might include pursuing Jason Kidd because they know Dame wants him, even though I think that's a horrible decision. Um, I, but I think the right move would be to get him more help. I mean, he has CJ to rely on. Obviously, Nurkic is good too, but he always runs into foul trouble. Uh, and in the playoffs, they've never been consistently good or good enough to get very far past the first round most of the time. So I think they need someone to relieve that pressure off of Dame and CJ. I don't know who that is. I don't know if they need a Seth Curry, Danny Green type who can just score, but who's like kind of okay otherwise, or if they need more of a Ben Simmons type who is maybe not your best scorer on the team, but who is a defensive dominator.
Mm.
I don't know. I don't know. I would assume the latter. I would assume they need more defensive help because both Dame and CJ are okay on defense. But I don't know what they'll actually do.
For sure, for sure. Before we transition to our last coach on death row, so you're saying that whatever it takes, either side, Dame or Portland Trailblazers, you do not trade CJ McCollum.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. I mean, we've seen the backcourts, but I think it's one of the best backcourts. Obviously, we know they don't get the dubs that they should be getting. Maybe it's Steph Curry, Klay Thompson. Maybe they're the guys that really are. But I think in terms of like small market, like I mean, these guys are like really just homegrown, disrespected, small colleges, stuff like that. So it'd be awesome if they end their career together. But I guess we'll just have to see. This one will make it very quick. Nick Bjorken, 1 year with Indiana Pacers, out of here. Probably halfway through the season, he lost the locker room, and once you leave the locker room, clearly no one respects you at this point. And head coach in the NBA does not have the same praise as a college coach in the NCAA. So, his background was he was the associate head coach of the Toronto Raptors under Nick Nurse. High praise. They're supposed to be really good, and I think they had a good start, and then it just kind of fell apart where no one knew what to do with this. And per our usual discussion with the Indiana Pacers, they're just always average or right below it. They never progress any further. Do you think Terry Stotts is a good fit for this team?
I think so. I think because I think Terry Stotts' problem in Portland was he, from what I saw, it felt like he was always trying to have the whole team play, like he was always trying to like move the ball around or
Mhm.
not just have Dame and CJ be the only ones on the team. And I think that works really well with the Pacers team. I think you need that, but I think that is kind of the opposite of what you want to do in Portland. You want to give the ball to CJ and Dame all the time
Mhm.
and just let everyone else do defense and rebounding and stuff like that. And I think him in Portland, he wasn't doing that, and they were just deciding to do that on the court. Like Dame would just pull up and be like, "I'm gonna take a half court shot because I know we're down by 10, and I know I'm the only one that's gonna be able to do this." Fuck Terry Stotts. So I think he could work well with a Pacers team that's maybe not as good as the Portland team, but they're at least well rounded or more well rounded. I don't know. I think it could be interesting.
Lastly, before we transition, we all agree Jason Kidd should not be a head coach moving forward anywhere. Correct? Okay. Putting that in stone right now. All right. Better news. Our boy, we're homegrown now, homegrown with the green grass, the ganj. Nikola Jokic wins the NBA MVP, latest draft pick to win it, first Nugget to win it, and I think the first center since Shaquille O'Neal to win MVP. I know Shaq had high praise, like saying thank you for bringing glory to big men once again because of all the disrespect. Like they never could get it. Do you, I'm going to change the narrative a little bit, okay? I'm just saying we got love. He won it, all right? We're not taking it away from him. If everyone was healthy in this race, do you think Nikola Jokic would still win it?
No, because I think the MVP award is partly popularity contest, and Jokic has never been that popular of a player. Even though he's unbelievably talented at the game, even though he's one of the best centers in the league, even though he deserves this award, I think if Joel Embiid was healthy, he's gonna win it because more people because Joel Embiid has a bigger personality. Like the media is very quick to focus on Joel Embiid versus focusing on Jokic because Jokic interviews are kind of boring like that, and that's fair. Like the NBA is a like entertainment industry. At the end of the day, they got to make money. Like I get it, but I think Jokic deserves this 100%.
No, no, I agree. I mean, like he's a quiet giant in a way. Like the way he reminded me, he reminds me of playing like Tim Duncan, where it's just like very fundamental basketball. Probably the best passing big man we've ever seen
Yeah.
play this game. I mean, the guy has eyes behind the back of his head, and it's just fun to watch because his his signature move is that spin move, and then he does a floater off
Yep.
the backboard every time. He backboard is his like game every time. Can we play 2K? I get Nikola Jokic. You can't guard me, okay? Like I just do the spin move as game at this point, and I think we saw it this season that like you really can't stop him. The issue is just the rest of his team can't do anything, which we'll get into in a little bit. Um, I'm just saying, I think if LeBron was healthy, we'd be having a different story. I think LeBron could have been on pace to get that MVP. But speaking of LeBron, the biggest news of all NBA updates: LeBron James officially changing his number from 23 to 6, which he had back in Miami. Um, but Anthony Davis is only going to stick with 3. He's not going to take number 23. So kind of respect all of that. Because he's changing the number to 6, are we going to see a rejuvenated LeBron James like back in Miami, Kevin? Is it time?
I don't think so. I think he's doing this for hype, and I respect it, but I don't think we're gonna see a rejuvenated LeBron again. I think we saw glimpses of a lot of glimpses of fine wine and dine LeBron this season, absolutely. But I think every year that goes on, we're gonna see less and less of it. I think like we mentioned, he since his injury, he's explicitly said he's like, I will never be at 100% again, or whatever the quote was. I think he's doing this for hype to kind of amp himself up and be like, I am gonna be that Miami Heat LeBron again, which I'm all for. Like, you do what you gotta do. Pull that Michael Jordan shit and make up something in your head to hype you up. I'm all about it. But if we saw Miami LeBron James again, I would be ecstatic, but I don't think it's gonna happen.
Dang. Okay. I mean, I'm just saying, LeBron said this when Anthony Davis came. He's like, hey, I'm going to change my number regardless. So it wasn't just purely this, but he just wanted to let everyone know that he's still the GOAT, all this stuff. Which is kind of funny because, like, on that same day, Pat Riley made a comment saying that if LeBron wanted to come back to Miami, we'll leave a nice shiny key under the mat, and then got fined $25,000 for tampering. Just because if you're an executive, you can't mention anything about players. Daryl Morey, ironically, did something similar with Steph Curry, where I think it was when Steph Curry dropped like 35 points against the Wizards and that win. Steph Curry made a comment and was like, "Oh man, that was awesome." And then Daryl Morey just like cropped the picture and was like, "Yo, you should totally come." And then it was just like $75,000 fine. So I mean, like, what if this LeBron ding dong ditches for Miami again? Like, the team is good there now. Like, imagine LeBron just goes and was just like, South Beach, welcome me back, get another ring in the East.
I I would kind of really like that. I think
We're hearing it here, folks.
LeBron on that team with Jimmy Butler, if Jimmy Butler stays, I think LeBron and Jimmy Butler would be something so fun to watch again, especially in the playoffs. Jimmy didn't show up this year as much as he did last year, but I think the rest of his team didn't either, so not all on him. But LeBron and Jimmy, all for it. I think that would be so fun.
And with a young Adebayo too. Like, I mean, like LeBron, you don't have to play defense anymore. You know, like it's just you're good. You're set for life at this point. Um, Speaking about hype, I don't know if you saw the Space Jam 2 trailer, the second one they released. Pretty good. I'm just saying, pretty good. I mean, look, I think they're two different comparisons. It just has the same title. You can't compare the OG with 30 years later, 40 years, maybe 40 years, 30 years later, 30 years later. Um, Space Jam 2. And it was kind of funny because they like came back into like LeBron's universe and they were like, 3D and stuff like that. But we saw some LeBron 19's first look. Kevin, you only gave us one fire in the chat. Matt gave about 4. John's the one that posted, so I'm assuming he got 4. I have 3. I agree. I think it wasn't 4. It was 3. But what was there was no sheesh moment for you? What happened?
I've since upped my number of fire emojis. I think first glance it wasn't anything impressive, and then like every time I saw it since, I was like, oh, and I just got like more and more interested and hyped up about it. Now I'm around 3.
3. Okay.
If that's the scale we're going with.
All right, on a scale of 1 to 10, Space Jam 2, where are you going to put it? What do you think it's going to be? Just for your personal sake.
I think for myself, I'm assuming a 7. Like good, but not like OG Space Jam, but still enjoyable,
Yeah. Because you're a fine connoisseur of movies, I know. Yeah, no, I probably agree. 7, 8. I mean, it's a kid's movie. Like, we all know that. It's not going to be like a well-developed movie, but it's a movie with LeBron. It's about basketball. You can't be mad about it. Speaking about sadness, James Harden out game 3, hamstring injury. Man has not looked good since playing 4 minutes the first quarter. And we all know hamstring injuries. It's definitely something that takes a long time to recover. And then if you overdo it, you could probably straight up just like break it at this point. So clearly, even with Harden being out, the Nets have been most dominant, which we'll get into a little bit. Let's get into more sadness. Steve Clifford, Magic, they're done. They're like, hey, you want a chance to rebuild? Nope. Okay, see ya. Maybe it's good, maybe it's bad. We'll have to see. Mavs, Game 7, choked. They couldn't beat the Clippers. It just really came down to experience and Kawhi Leonard just being Kawhi Leonard at this point. I heard the usage percentage for Luka Doncic was 39% for all possessions. 39% it goes through him, which is nuts. I hear on average to be like more well balanced, you your star players have 25%. So it's a big jump, and I think that really does come down to how you build this team. The Mavs said they're going to keep Rick Carlisle, but we're seeing a little bit of the quote unquote second man of this team. Kristaps Porzingis very upset with the role on his team, coming out saying that he feels more like an afterthought than a co-star to Doncic when he dominates the ball and takes the spotlight. Is this something to complain about? Is this on Porzingis, or is this on the Mavs to really create that feng shui with the team?
This is, I think, 100% on Porzingis because, listen, Luka gets a triple-double almost every game. He's putting up Russ numbers this season. He's dishing out assists left and right. He is at almost 40% usage percentage. Like, he's getting the ball to other people and not just himself. So, yeah, he might be the star, he might be the face, but you should have plenty of opportunities to get the ball and to score. And he's not making as much of an impact as he should be. With the level that KP should be at, he's just not playing up to that level, unfortunately. And he's had plenty of opportunities. He's had time and time again we see him get passes from Luka, and then he'll miss a 20-foot jumper or something like that. He plays in the 4 spot. He can't play big at all. Like, it's just everything he should be, he's not, unfortunately. And so this is totally on him. I get why he's complaining, but I think he needs to look at himself before he puts the blame on like Mavs or Luka.
Okay, so it's a real check himself. Before he starts talking. So is this a good luck for the Mavs, or is this a fuck 'em with Porzingis?
I don't know. I still think he could be good, but if he has that mentality, that's not the right mentality to have on that team as they are now. I think you need to be the supporting cast for Luka. And if he doesn't want to be that, then maybe he's got to go.
I see you've been playing a lot of 2K GM mode now. When you got to talk to the player stars about their role. Hey,
when like your 6th stringer comes to you and he's like, "Hey, I want some more playing time, coach." You're like, you score 8 points a game, if that, on like 20 minutes. Slow your roll.
Hey, that sounds familiar. That sounds like Pat Williams. Pat Williams, right? Okay, exactly. Is there a time to say anything we want, Kevin? Because we don't have Brothers Murphy to say anything. This is great. We mentioned Luka Doncic once. It's gonna be the Trae Young show now moving forward because someone actually gets to the second round. Let's make it very clear. Lastly, with a few things, Rudy Gobert, Defensive Player of the Year, back to back. Could care less. Rudy Gooby, you're just tall. It's not hard being tall. I wish I was your height in some cases. So I can use the 3rd shelf on my fucking cabinet in the kitchen. That's probably the only reason I can just store all of my peanut butter jars that I've used twice, and just keep buying more and keep stocking up there. But I guess well deserved. I mean, they are the 1 seed for a reason, and their defensive differential against teams, there's number 1. So I can't be mad about it. But better news, my boy Tibbs. Coach of the Year with the Knicks. I personally thought Monty Williams deserved it more, just in terms of, going from the 9th or 10th seed to a 2 seed and being dominant and possibly going to the Western Conference Finals now. I think that's great to see. But I mean, obviously, popularity, New York Knicks, always trash. Finally making it to the playoffs, even though they 4-1, against the Atlanta Hawks. Well deserved by Tibbs, or do you think Quinn Snyder snubbed or Monty snubbed?
I think Monty snubbed a little bit, but that being said, I think Tibbs did more with less, I guess. Like, Monty is awesome coach. He did phenomenal this year. I think he does deserve Coach of the Year, but he had a lot of really, really powerful pieces on his team. Tibbs did it with like 30-plus-year-old Derrick Rose, Julius Randle, and a bunch of no names. Like, yeah. I gotta respect that. And so them giving him Coach of the Year, I can't disagree with. Granted, I would have chose Monty.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I'm not mad about the decision. Obviously, I mean, I think it was really good coaching all year by like 3, 4 coaches. Like, I mean, like you really couldn't be mad about who won. I mean, even like Nick McMillan for Atlanta to like go from 9th seed to the 4th seed and go
Yeah.
to the next round and to be a real threat against the 76ers, like, what more can you ask at this point? Last thing before we jump into the current playoff race, NBA already releasing their schedule in terms of how they're going to start off. They're trying to get back to normal. October, starting to get back up. October 19th will be game one of the NBA season, trying to end in June. Are we vibing with this? We've experienced this already. I feel like there's been too much basketball, and I know they're trying to push for the Olympics as well. I'd be curious to see who actually goes. It might just be like young people again, just because no one wants to play basketball, to be honest. What do you think this is a good idea by the NBA to get back into norm?
I think they could still slow their roll a little bit and just decrease the number of games and decrease it on the front end. So decrease it in October, let
Mm.
players have a bigger time, especially players that are going to this year the championship that's going to be in what, July, like, so they're going to have even less time. Granted, more time than last year, but still, I think, like you said, like we've been saying, I think there needs to be less games overall, and I think the spot to do that again is in October, November. Take away games, maybe even just space out games more in October, November. Maybe have one game every 4 or 5 days or something like that. Don't have like back to backs in October, November. Like, I don't know.
Okay. Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, I never actually thought I'd say that. I'm like, we need a break from a lot of basketball. Like it's been nonstop, and we're just talking about it. Like we don't even play it, and we're like tired. I couldn't imagine what the players go through, and we're seeing a lot of injuries unnecessarily. And there's just like, hopefully, this was the right call. I mean, I know that everyone wanted that's why they rushed this season so they can get back into norm. But I guess we'll just have to see how it pans out. But let's talk about the playoffs now. We're into round two now. Everyone's here. Let's just jump into it. Suns scorching this Nuggets team, our Nuggets team. Game one, 122 to 105. These games are not close. Game two yesterday, 123-98. At one point, it was about 30-point difference in game two. And do you think it's the Nuggets playing bad, or do you think it's the Suns playing phenomenal? Because I think it's the Suns playing phenomenal.
I actually agree. I think the Nuggets aren't playing their full potential. They aren't playing what they were against the Trailblazers every game. But the Suns are taking advantage of every single mistake that the Nuggets make. And the Nuggets make a fair amount of mistakes. The Blazers wouldn't have brought it to that many games if they didn't. Um, the Suns are just doing really, really well. I mean, we talked about it outside the pod, but they had, what, 6 or 7 people score over double digits, but no one scored over 20 in the last game, which I think is like super interesting
Yeah.
because they scored 123, but not one person scored over 20. That's like ideal, like Spurs basketball. Like Greg Popovich would have he probably his brain exploded when he saw that game. Like that is his dream.
No, exactly. I mean, we know from the Nuggets side, like Jokic puts up the numbers. People who are not showing up from the last series, Monte Morris. I mean, this guy's been a no-show for almost the entire series. Game
Yeah.
one, 2 points. Game two, 3 points. Completely detrimental and just not playing good. That's just bad basketball at this point. Michael Porter Jr., I believe he finished the first half 1 for 8 from three. And then I think by the end of the third quarter, he was 2 for 12 overall field goal. Not looking good. Those are the guys you can put real stats in. Aaron Gordon, 6 points. My boy Facu, 3 points. It's just not looking good. When Paul Millsap's your second best scorer, that's not a good sign for this team at all. And I think now we're looking at it now. I think about JaVale McGee played, so this is not it's not a good sign. But I think we all know that the missing piece here. I think it's been very clear now. Jamal Murray is actually a very significant piece, and I don't think Michael Porter is ready just yet to take on that role as another star talent. I mean, this is his first year really playing playoff basketball, so there's nothing really to blame there. But if Jamal Murray was playing this series, do you think it would be a different scenario right now?
100% without a doubt, yes. I think Michael Porter Jr. has really proved himself this past series against the Blazers. But that being said, he doesn't have the experience. He is inconsistent still. Like we saw, like 1 for 8 at the half or whatever. Like he's still learning a lot. He's gonna be good, I think, and give him like another year or 2 years. I think he's gonna be really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
But for now, they need another offensive leader, and Jamal Murray is so good on that team. He's so good with Jokic. He's a good leader when Jokic isn't on the floor. Like I miss him, especially after last season. Like him in the playoffs was so fun to watch and so clutch at the best times. And yeah, I miss him on that team.
No, for sure. I agree. I mean, like we saw last playoff in the bubble how he just popped off. Like averaging 40 points in like 2 series, which is nuts. Um, Hopefully they come back strong. With that being said, 2-0 down to the Suns. Who do you have winning and how many games?
Hey, I said whoever won the Lakers Suns was going to the finals. I still stick by that. I think the Nuggets are kind of gonna come back a bit, but I think it's 5 games Suns.
I know it's gonna be rough. I am going to Game 3 uh, with my cousin. We were hoping we were going to win yesterday's game to make it more interesting, but now it's going to be really interesting. So at least the best part is that we'll get to see Jokic get awarded the trophy, and everything will be good there. But I think I'll have to agree with you. I said Suns in the finals, and I think that's what's going to happen. I mean, the way they're playing right now, it really comes down to DeAndre Ayton. He's really cooking on Jokic. And I think Jokic might be just tired, but I don't know. DeAndre Ayton has really, really stepped up, and I'm really impressed by this. I think it's actually to the point where you don't regret him taking number one because I think it actually was worth it at this point. Let's jump into the next series: Clippers, Jazz. Both teams we despise. I don't know if you despise the Jazz as much, but we don't talk about the Jazz on my end. Game ended 112-109. Clippers had the lead all the way through the first half. Then, I mean, maybe it's time to give some respect to Donovan Mitchell. I think we did shame him a little bit. 45 points. Great performance. However, only won by 3 on a 45-point performance. At that point, it's a little concerning. I mean, the rest of what they're known for is what they didn't do. Royce O'Neal, 8 points. They didn't shoot that well from 3. And it got a little scary. I mean, even at the end, it really just came down to the last shot, and it came down to a block realistically. With this series now 1-0, what do you think will be the biggest factor for the Clippers to get jump started back in it?
I think the Clippers got to keep doing what they're doing and playing tough defense against that team. Yeah, you can't shut down Donovan Mitchell every time, but you can shut down everyone else on that team like they did. It just happened that they lost by 1 3-pointer. Like that's tough. It's going to happen. But I think looking at it now, I'm a little worried for the Jazz because they had six people who played more than 15 minutes and 3 people that played less than 15 minutes. Their bench is small. They're just doing that 6-man rotation basically. And in a series against the Clippers, that's going to be tough. I think around game 3 or 4, that Jazz team is going to get tired, and I don't think we're going to see that 45-point output from Donovan Mitchell at that point.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. It really just comes down to, like you said, I think it doesn't matter who it is. I think as much as we despise him, Paul George just being on-ball defender on like Donovan Mitchell, if you're able to shut him down, it really comes down to Donovan Mitchell being the real facilitator, real point guard at this point. I think he's just more of a true scorer, in my opinion. And it's much needed for this roster, but I think that's going to be the one flaw for this team for sure is that how can you get this team active when under pressure. And with that being said, who do you have winning this series and how many games?
I think this is going to be a long series. I think I hate to say it, but I think I'm going to say Jazz in 7. I'm going to say this goes to 7, but I think Clippers are notorious for choking. So I think they're gonna lose it at the last minute against the Jazz.
Okay. I'm going to ride with the Clippers. I really just don't have confidence in this Jazz team. And I'm probably wrong in a lot of cases at this, but there's really there's nothing solid about this team that I feel like, oh man, they're like a shoe in it. Like I felt way more, certain about the Suns, and they played a broken Lakers team. Like this one, the Jazz are going to play, the Clippers, and I don't think they're going to make it past it. I just don't think they have that right skill set. Maybe it's just another couple of years being in the playoffs and being in the high seed. They are missing Mike Conley, so we can't forget about that. I know he was a big factor, and that could be what they're missing. But with that being said, I think Clippers, Kawhi going sicko mode. You're just banking you don't get playoff P, and hopefully pass it on to Porzingis at this point. But we'll have to see. I got Clips in 6. Let's get into some more fun series, and by fun I meant really sad. We'll leave the sad one for the end because I think that'll be the greatest part. We'll do 76ers Hawks. I think that's just a really odd series. I know host Matt was despising the Hawks. Not sure why. I think it's a whole love for Luka that you have to hate Trey. Once again, one person's in. I'm sorry, the DeAndre Ayton and Trey Young are in the second round right now. Just saying. But with that being said, Hawks took game 1. A lot of trash talk happening. Trey Young doing Trey Young things. With Joel Embiid playing still, and he played well in game 1. They lost, so it was a little concerning. The 76ers came back with game 2. They got a lot more of the bench scoring. Joel Embiid, of course, and then Shake Milton balling out as well. If I am the Hawks, are we already proud of ourselves that we got to this state, or do you think they can fly even higher?
I think Trey wants to prove himself. I think Trey, especially, maybe the rest of the team, they all have a chip on their shoulder as the Hawks. Like I think everyone, us included, kind of counted them out at the beginning of the season and didn't think much of them. And then maybe you didn't. But they've really shown a lot of grit, and I'm really impressed with what they've done. But I don't think that's enough for them. I think they really want to at least get to the conference finals and prove themselves. But I think they need to step it up against the 76ers team. They really need to always be playing at their best. And the last game, they weren't quite there. It's going to be tough. It's going to be a tough fight for them to win this series.
With that being said, who do you got? I mean, I know we didn't talk about the 76ers that much, but is that of concern, or do you just feel confident that they could make it the next round?
I don't know. I'm actually torn on this one. I think if the Hawks win, it'll be in game 7 with a small margin of victory. Like it'll be like 3 points or 5 points at the end. But realistically, I think it's Sixers in 6. I want the Hawks to win. I think this is a fun team to watch, especially in game 1. They really were killing it, but I don't know if they have. I don't know if they have what it takes to beat this fully fleshed out 76ers team.
Okay. You're wrong. First off, it's Hawks in 6. I First off, Ice Tray getting really cold out here. I'm loving the smack talk. First off, I think there's a lot of smack talk in all these series. I'm loving it. Trae Young, my boy Bogdanovich, that guy killing it. That guy working on that contract. Danilo also putting up the stats. Clint Capella, perfect. This is a perfect, well-fit team. And we didn't even talk about John Collins. He's not that good, to be honest, in this series. that being said, I got Hawks in 6. I think it's gonna be easy mode, and then we'll just say, "Hey Nets, what's good, my guy?" And then we'll go 4-0. You know what else can we ask for? So, um, speaking of the Nets, straight up Elmer Fudd getting out that shotty and gunning down these Bucks right now. 2-0, an embarrassing losses for the Bucks. It almost felt like we'd never like. It almost felt like that Giannis was not MVP at this point. And think about it, that he was back to back, right? That's just nuts. That the way that they've been performing has been horrendous and probably the most disappointing, series at this point. I mean, I had Bucks going at it. I had so much confidence and clearly not showing this. But I think this has to go to a lot of praise to Kevin Durant, putting up ridiculous stats. It's like he's never got injured, not from the noggin. Um, and it was an interesting story that came out. I know. Are you familiar with Jay Williams, ESPN?
Yeah.
And he was talking about how Kevin Durant, when he was at a party with him,
Oh yeah.
told him that he said Kevin Durant told me that don't you ever fucking compare me to Giannis ever again. That is a mistake. And then Kevin Durant came out and said, that's a fucking lie. That's not it. But I'm kind of hoping he said that. Like, part of me is hoping he said, like, that's the right attitude I want from these guys, is that don't you ever compare me to this guy, to this, because I'm way better than any of them. And I think we're seeing it. We have not seen Giannis really show up these last 2 games. And I believe as of now, Bucks were up by 13, only up by 3 now. A little concerning back in Milwaukee. What do the Bucks have to do, Kevin? Like, this is our hometown almost. What do we have to do?
You gotta
Right?
You gotta cry a lot and pray. I'm not even religious, but you gotta pray or something like.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. This is tough because the Bucks bench is abysmal, which means Giannis and Drew and Chris Middleton are going to be playing 40 minutes a game, close to, and they're going to be tired. I wish the Bucks bench could do something, but like this first quarter in today's game, as we are recording this, Bucks were up 19. It was 30-11 at the end of the first quarter. And then, or also that was exclusively from Middleton and Giannis, 15 points each at the end of the first quarter. Right now, it's 33-30. They have scored 3 points in 8 minutes of play in the second quarter, and the Nets have scored 19. And to top it all off, Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving have combined 10 points.
Wow.
Of their 30, they have combined only 10.
That's wow. Wow.
This is looking not great for the Bucks.
It's not good. Do you think that this series could be changing for Giannis? I know he signed that max, but do you think this is are we turning a tide here with Giannis? Do you think it's time for him to leave?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think what this series is going to do is humble Giannis. I think this season, especially coming off MVPs, he thinks he's really good. He thinks his team is really good. He's stayed quiet. Don't get me wrong. He's stayed humble in the public, but I think in his head, he's like, okay, this is our year. We can do this. We got it. No problem. And I think going against this Nets team and getting embarrassed as they are is going to be a big wake-up call for him.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think Bucks have got to change something. If they lose to the Nets in 4 or 5 games, they gotta take a step back and be like, "Wow, we just got dominated.
Mm-hmm.
We got to do something."
Yeah, and I mean, like, it's a lot of like random Nets players that are balling out, like Mike James, who they got from Russia, like balling out. And Chris Middleton cannot guard this man. Like, I don't know what it is. Like, he just cannot stay on this guy, and they're just balling out. With that being said, Bucks down 2-0 in the Milwaukee. Like you said, they're currently up by a few. Who do you got?
I think Nets in 5. I really do. As much as I want the Bucks to make it a series. I think they've been pushing it as much as they can, and as much as they can is not enough right now.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. It's definitely not how I thought it was going to pan out. I thought it was going to be a much more difficult series because I just don't want the Nets to win. I'm just that guy. Like I'm just like, you just build a super team, and I know we didn't get to see Harden and everything together, but it's still pretty fucking good. Like you have the best scorer in NBA history, plus one of the best handlers in the NBA. No one plays defense, but when you score 140 points a game, like you don't need to. You really don't need to. So, um, I got to flip it. I'm gonna go with the Nets now. I think Nets going four. I'm really not confident in this Bucks team now. They really failed me, and like you said, I mean, like Kyrie and Kevin Durant have not balled out yet, and the game is this close. So, something's obviously clicking for this Nets roster. Last thought: any revision to your picks for the NBA Finals? Mine will change. I'll just go ahead Suns Nets now. I'm going to take the Bucks out.
That was my most recent pick. I'm sticking with it. Uh, yeah, I think there's no stopping the Nuts or the Suns. So
It's gonna be a weird finals this year. It's gonna be really weird. Like not as much of like the superstar that we knew, in the past 5 6 years, and it's all changing.
yeah,
I think I read somewhere that since 1998, we've never seen. We've always seen the Spurs, LeBron James, or not LeBron James. Sorry, Spurs, Heat, Warriors, and someone else. We always seen four teams always in the final, and it's changing this year. So maybe that's good actually. So maybe we're doing something exciting moving forward. With that being said, Kevin, let's end the show.
oh, thank you guys for listening to the OGs, me and Sam, holding down the fort over here. Follow us on Instagram for some memes, even though I've been slacking in the meme game. I swear I'll post some soon, and they will be hysterical, and you will laugh. Bet. Listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, Anchor. At the Deep Three Pod. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, I think. Email us at the Deep Three Pod at gmail.com. Give us some questions. Give us some shit. Say we don't know anything about basketball. Sure, fine. We'll take it. We'll take the heat. Yeah, just thanks for listening. We appreciate it.